Cultural and Recreational Center. I'm the chair of the board of directors, Bruce Lupke, and pleased to be joined by the rest of our board of directors, along with our representative from our members and our other interested parties and stakeholders from the Keystone Centre. Welcome to our annual general meeting. Get a motion. Our minutes from our annual general meeting of 2021, January 14th of last year, were circulated among our board. I just need a motion to adopt the minutes as circulated. Motion by Greg Melistravitz, seconded by Kathy Kleber. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I'll move to the chair of the board report, and tonight I'm pleased to speak on behalf of the board of directors of the Keystone Centre. To say the impact of the pandemic on the operation of the Keystone Centre was significant would be an understatement. However, as noted in the upcoming auditor's report, we did report a six-figure surplus in our operations for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. I'm very proud of the way CEO and GM Jeff Schumacher and our management team and staff as how they had to navigate through the pandemic, and I wish to thank them for their continued efforts. In the last 5 years, the Keystone Centre has taken significant steps to improve the organizational structure to increase revenue generation through improved operational efficiencies and improvements in customer service. These improvements have allowed the facility to attract some large and mid-sized events to the city of Brandon, and we will continue our vision to be the premier service-oriented, multifunctional, community-minded facility in Manitoba as we move forward. Keystone Centre is honored to be participating in the TP Tour Legacy Project with the installation of a permanent TP structure just outside Entrance A that will support important Indigenous teaching and learning opportunities. This installation was one step in our commitment to recognizing our Indigenous partners at the Keystone Centre. I believe 2022 will be a critical year for the Keystone Centre. In 2020, the provincial government announced funding for developing a long-term sustainability action plan, and we're anxious for the province to share and collaborate on that action plan, which is crucial to addressing the lack of predictable and sustainable funds for the Keystone Centre. We have had limited ability to undertake necessary and outstanding projects to manage the increasing costs of operating our 540,000 square foot facility. Some of our increasing costs include our insurance costs continuing to rise with a 17% increase in 2021 after a 32% increase the prior year. The carbon tax, which was just under $41,000 in 2019 and 2020, is projected to increase to as much as $89,000 in 2022. The Centra gas rate hike, which nearly doubled for the Keystone Centre, will add $48,000 to $69,000 to our costs, with the range based on the facility's activity level any given year, and the Manitoba Hydro rate increase is continuing to be analyzed with the 3.6% increase that Manitoba Hydro has announced. A long-term funding agreement of no less than 5 years is long overdue. The Keystone Centre checks many boxes: agriculture, recreation, tourism, conventions, economic development, and a collaborative approach with other levels of government, and we're committed to working cooperatively to strengthen the vital relationship between the Keystone Centre, province of Manitoba, and the city of Brandon. We are losing 3 valued members of our board of directors, and Lori Rodich, Jeff Crystal, and Tanya LeBuick. We thank them for their knowledge, expertise, and commitment that they brought to the table and wish them all the best in the future. And in closing, I once again want to thank our staff and board of directors for their leadership, strength, and courage this past year. And to our community, I want to extend my appreciation for your support, patience, and trust as we work through many challenges this past year. I look forward to better days ahead. Thank you. Unfortunately, our CEO and GM, Jeff Schumacher, is unable to join us tonight, but his CEO and GM report is going to be given by our Manager of Finance, Chris Sells, and our Assistant General Manager, Connie Lawrence. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm actually just going to read Jeff's report, so I'm just going to go word by word, so please bear with me. Greetings and welcome from the Keystone Centre management team and the board of directors. And thank you all for taking the time to join us. My name is Jeff Schumacher and I am the CEO and general manager of the Keystone Centre. I'm also Connie Lawrence, the assistant GM of the Keystone Centre. As I reflect back on the pre-pandemic times, I remember all of the progress made, especially in attracting quality events to Brandon. Throughout our venue and halls, there was constant activity and commotion, anticipation for the next big concert, hockey game, tournament, fair, equestrian competition, or trade show. 2021 has been a considerable deviation from the norm and unlike any other in the Keystone's nearly 50 years of operation. The COVID-19 global pandemic virtually shuttered most areas of operation for the facility. Banquet, conference, concerts, and special events postponed or canceled. The Wheat Kings moved to Regina as a hub city for the season. The provincial exhibition was not able to hold any of their events, and youth hockey was canceled only a few weeks into the season. Ultimately, like so many other businesses and organizations, the Keystone Centre reluctantly adapted to operating in a COVID world with the ever-changing health protocols. We steadfastly continue to focus on providing a safe, clean, and friendly environment for fans and patrons as we endeavor to build back user confidence in attending live events and activities. I would like to thank all of our tenants, user groups, and patrons for their patience as well as we continue to navigate these dynamic challenges. At this time, I am going to hand it over to Chris.
Thanks, Connie. Moving on to the Keystone Centre's financial performance. As an event-focused business, fiscal 2021 was disheartening. Historically, financial performance varies, often significantly according to the event load, which in turn drives the larger revenue streams, including rental income, profit from food and beverage sales, and advertising dollars. In the absence of events during this past fiscal year, advertising dollars slowly evaporated. This was true across most of the smaller sign advertisers, but also led to a pause or expiration of our larger sponsorships due to the Keystone Centre's inability to deliver sponsor elements, most of which are dependent on patron and fan attendance levels. Food and beverage sales were infrequent and sparse, with overall profits significantly discounted as compared to fiscal 2019-20 and pre-pandemic years. The outlook for event income remained bleak. Pausing for a second to admit some people. Okay. On a positive note, buoyed by continued strong government support at just under 1.2 million delivered via the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program, the Keystone was able to retain senior and core staff, ensuring that key knowledge and experience would not be lost. Furthermore, continued cost-cutting measures, modest event income, consistent annual operating grants from the province of Manitoba and city of Brandon, and dependable monthly rental revenues from the vaccine super site and COVID testing site all contributed to the bottom line. Audited financials reflect an operating surplus of just over $181,000. This is an exceptional outcome given the challenges faced by the event industry. However, we suspect this surplus will be needed in the current fiscal year to offset lost revenues due to lower event and attendance counts, as well as the continued phasing out of government support programs. Looking forward, 21-22 had initially showed signs of recovery. Health protocols slowly transitioned away from reduced capacities, and the entire Keystone was classified as a licensed establishment with total capacity generally increased to 100%. The caveat being patrons entering any space were mandated to provide proof of full vaccination. Early on, event confirmations were on the rise, although the number of events and attendance levels remained lower than normal due to patron uncertainty and a wait-and-see approach. As events resumed, revenues from rentals increased and advertisers rebooted or returned. Unfortunately, with the recent Omicron variant, this return to the new normal was short-lived and drastic reductions in capacity were soon to follow, triggering more postponed or canceled events. The remainder of fiscal 21-22 remains uncertain. As we look to the future, we eagerly await the Keystone Centre long-term sustainability plan from the province, the study that was commissioned by the province. As Jeff mentioned last year, we continue to emphasize the importance of completing the new long-term funding agreement with the province of Manitoba and City of Brandon that include adequate, predictable capital and operating support. These paramount next steps are essential to allow the facility to plan and execute new revenue growth strategies and maintain the 50-year-old facility into the next decade. Courtesy of over $390,000 in grants from sources other than our annual city and provincial grants, several large capital projects were confirmed in 2021. The following list is not inclusive of all projects, but several examples include the pairing of grants from the Building Sustainable Communities through the province of Manitoba and Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, or ICIP program. Additional phases of long-awaited roof replacements were approved and completed. This included full replacement of the Manitoba Room roof and portions of adjoining hallways. Approved in fiscal 2019-20 and completed in the last fiscal year, installation of the new NHL-approved acrylic and dasherboard system. This new system satisfies WHL requirements, has proven to be safer for players of all ages, and is more efficient when executing changeovers from hockey to special events and back. During the summer of 2022, we expect to complete another large-scale project made possible through a matching grant from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program and annual capital funding from the city and province. A large portion of the east and southeast parking lots to include parking area across from entrance A to the southeastern tip of the parking lot will be resurfaced. Sodexo Live, our food and beverage partner, funded the purchase of a very popular high-volume portable donut cart, bringing this product offering in-house. Sodexo Live has to date invested more than $750,000 through its partnership in improvements and equipment purchases at the Keystone Centre. There's also been continued upgrades to the facility, including LED fixtures, including all concourse lighting within Westoba Place through grants from Manitoba Hydro. I'm going to turn it back over to Connie to talk about what's new.
What's new at the Keystone Centre? Last year around this same time, Jeff mentioned that the Keystone Centre would soon be participating in the recovery process by hosting a provincial vaccine super site. Since its inception, the vaccine super site has provided thousands of doses of the various vaccines to Manitobans. I can also confirm that the super site located in the Manitoba Room and managed by Prairie Mountain Health has extended through the end of September 2022 with a 3-month extension to December 31st, 2022. J&G, the new Brandon Wheat King ownership group, completed some impressive renovations of a team locker room, equipment room, coach's office, and more. The home of the Wheat Kings heritage signs and located previously near 18th Street Bridge were relocated to the outside, southwest corner, and inside north wall of Westover Place. Further enhancements related to the game presentation were completed, including improved sound, theatrical lighting, and hazards 6A. I'm not exactly sure what that is, I'm sorry. On May 8th, 2021, the Keystone Centre proudly showcased its newest special project, Clara. This fabulous space was created to provide an alternative location for weddings and special events and to extend the Keystone's booking season into and through the summer. A perfect location for markets and weddings. Clara's inaugural event was the Apple and Pine Market, followed soon after by graduations, weddings, and receptions, other markets, and celebrations of life. The majority of the construction for this area was completed this past fiscal year, including the pouring of the massive foundation for the clear tent, addition of the electrical and Wi-Fi service, landscaping including a paved walkway, and an additional green space enhancement with the construction of a nearby 40 by 40 covered pavilion. Signage located outside at the main entrance was rebranded with the identifier entrance A through E, making it easier to direct patrons and events via all forms of communication. Several signs were also upgraded to LED lighting. Directional and section signage inside Westover Place was also refreshed and simplified with a critical numbering from 101 to 122, and wayfinding signs inside were updated. A key theme in reopening discussions across sports and entertainment has been the transition to touchless and cashless transactions. As the Keystone's management team looked into the 2021-22 season, they worked closely with the food and beverage operator Sodexo Live, transitioning concessions, bars, and the box office to mostly cashless environment with the focus on credit debit point of sale. All PIN pads were upgraded to a faster model, and credit debit transactions have been added benefit to expediting service and decreasing wait times in lines. And working in conjunction with Wheat Kings, mobile ticketing became the preferred delivery method of tickets for the WHL games. In the absence of events, there was an immediate shift to project work, including the creation of new projects and completion of back burner projects. The Keystone Centre website was overhauled, a virtual tour and detailed full building technical guides were developed and posted. These technical guides continue to be shared with promoters and event organizers to assist in both the sales and event planning process. Included are the important elements such as building maps, square footage by space, available equipment, and room features, as well as examples of various rooms and event layouts. A big thanks to our operations department, who likely completed 5 normal years of project work. In addition to some of the projects I've already mentioned, they completed painting and the cosmetic work across the upwards of 75% of the facility. Maintenance repair of various plumbing, HVAC, mechanical systems, and heavy equipment. Several outsourced systems were also tendered during this period. In closing, I would like to thank Bruce Lipke, Chair, Keystone Board of Directors, and as well as the entire board for their continued support of the management team and all the employees at the Keystone Centre throughout the pandemic. Thanks and best wishes to our outgoing board members, Lori, Jeff, Tanya, as well as our new board members, Jamie Hall and Javier Vargas. As always, on behalf of our management team and the Keystone Board of Directors, we recognize and thank our many tenants, sponsors, rental clients, and funding partners, the City of Brandon and the Province of Manitoba for their continued support. Sincerely,
Jeff, Connie, and Chris.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris and Connie, and thanks for the pinch hit in a short time frame for filling in and giving Jeff's presentation on his behalf. And the only thing that comes to mind after seeing that is even though we haven't necessarily been busy in 2020, 2021, we were really busy in 2020, 2021 doing a lot of different things. So appreciate that. Wanted to move on and welcome Todd Birkin, who is engagement partner with BDO. And Todd's going to give us a overview of the 2021 financial statements and the auditor's report. Turn it over to you, Todd.
Great. Thank you very much, Bruce. So Chris talked about a lot of the financial affairs. I'll maybe just sort of probably add to his conversation. I'll share my screen here if that's all right. When we look at financial statements, Chris talked about it in great, did a very good job of sort of presenting the financial statements and talking about the fact that through a measure of a lot of choices and a very difficult year, you were able to generate what's called an operating surplus in your financial statements of $181,785. Now, that how we got there, I think, is important just for people to understand. I'm not going to get into the great detail, but what we can see is, you know, this was on the back of a very challenging year. Not all revenue disintegrated, but our revenue in the current year, when we look at it overall, our net revenue is $2.9 million. Now, that's a starting point of the revenue. We also need to recognize that included in that revenue is basically $1.2 million of government grants through the wage subsidy programs and the Manitoba Bridge grants. So really, from an operating perspective, it's about $1.7 million, which is this $170,000 and $1.6 million. We compare that to the prior year. The prior year was $5.6 million. So that's a very significant drop. We also need to remember that the 2020 year experienced COVID for about 4 months as well. So this is not a full year number in its own. So earning a surplus in the current year definitely requires some choices, but also was very strongly influenced by the fact that we had some temporary funding that is during the 21-22 year will slowly be eroding itself away. But what we can see is there was a lot of, this goes to Bruce's comment, there was a lot of choices. Being busy, not serving events, but making damn good and sure we did our best to live within whatever resources were available is shown in these expenditures. Yes, pure activity of the center creates some of the expenses, but between Chris, Jeff, and the team, there was definitely a lot of choices made to make sure that money was really only the money that needs to be spent was spent, and ultimately led to an overall expenditure decrease at not quite in half, but about $2.8 million. And it's on the backs of that expenditure decrease and the government wage subsidy that the organization was basically able to generate an operating surplus of about $181,000. Now, as we look forward to the 2021-2022 year and this significant revenue source called the government wage subsidy and the reemergence of the COVID pandemic through the Omicron variants, it does definitely lay financial challenges at the feet of the board of directors management for the current year. Never mind just the inherent challenge of retraining individuals and re-engaging individuals once we actually get to the next stage of this journey to really to come back in full numbers to support events. Because as Chris stated, when things were starting to get back to normal, we still weren't back to normal in attendance of events. That ultimately does provide future challenges. But as far as the story goes up to July 31st, at least really, for lack of a better word, the Keystone Centre was able to tread water and reinvest in itself and basically leave itself in a position very similar this year to the prior year. And that's the story the financial statements show. With that, Bruce, I would like to open the floor to any questions anybody may have.
Sorry, do we have any questions of Todd or our finance manager, Chris Sells, in regards to the financial statements? See none, Todd. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here tonight, Bruce, and thank you, everyone. Thanks for the entire board of directors for their commitment, and thanks to the management team, because it's these are not easy times to operate an organization like the Keystone Centre. So thank you to everyone for your commitment to the Keystone Centre.
Thank you. Before I get a motion to adopt the auditor's report and financial statement, I did want to make a request to add a note, and it would be note number 12 to the statements to reflect the grant revenue for capital.
Would you like me to speak to that, Bruce?
Yes, please, Todd. So just grant revenue on page 9 that shows $1.1 million. We just want a note to reflect that, where that revenue came from.
At a meeting held today with the, I guess, the executive team, there was a desire brought up by a couple of people around the table to add a detailed note that broke down the amounts or the sources of the grant revenue funding for the capital. So the note is not changing any numbers within the body of the statements. It's adding a detailed listing to show the major contributors to who funded the grant revenue and the other grant revenue and what sources those came from. That came from the funding partners from the city and the province, just for transparency purposes.
So really that note would be reflected to be 500,000 from the city of Brandon and 600,000 from the province of Manitoba, as far as that 1.1 million of grant revenue is concerned.
You are correct.
Okay. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adopt the auditor's report and 2020-2021 financial statements as presented with that amendment. Moved by Gerald, second by Wayne Burr. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I was hoping Jeff would be around to answer the question and answer session, but we will open up the floor for any questions or comments that anyone that is in attendance might have. Don't be shy. Seeing none, I have no announcements. Does anybody else have announcements?
Bruce, there is a hand up there.
Tanya.
Okay, go ahead, Tanya.
Yeah, sorry, that was a mistake. I apologize. No, I didn't mean to put my hand up. I hit the wrong button.
Okay, no problem. I had no announcements unless you wanted to mark in your 2023 calendars that our annual general meeting next year will be January 12th of 2023. All right, I appreciate, go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to say, can one of you people tell me when COVID will be over and we can have our fair again? Is that a fair question?
February 15th, 2022.
Okay, good. That's a good answer. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, well, as I put in my comments, we'll get through it at some point, Kathy, and we look forward to the next events of the provincial exhibition at the Keystone Centre for sure.
Yes, as will we.
Hopefully that will be as soon as March of this year.
Yes.
We're going to stay confident. We'll stay confident that it's going to happen until somebody says otherwise.
Okay, good. From your lips to God's ears.
Thank you. Your Worship, Mayor Crest.
Thank you, Bruce. If this is kind of the announcements portion, I did want to add in, and I did state this, we had a members meeting that consisted of, the city, the province, the provincial exhibition as the I guess the main members of the overall organization. But I wanted to pass on to you, Bruce, and your board of directors and the staff, great commendation for having navigated this big organization, big facility through again these very challenging times, and financially keeping head above water and continuing to provide whatever services you're able to provide to the community, not the least of which of course is being the significant super site for both the testing and the vaccination super site. So, very important functions, and I know that is working well, but just overall, this went on, doing some betterment of the facility, being able to take the occasion to, continue to work on the capital side. And as was noted in the CEO's report, a lot of, what do they say, 5 years of probably planned maintenance and painting and so on, making the facility the best it can be, which was, very commendable to do. So just did want to make sure that everyone knew that all of this did not go unnoticed, and congratulations and thank you very much for that, amazing efforts in such a difficult time. So wanted to add that in if I could.
Thanks for your comments, Your Worship. I appreciate that, and I'm sure our management and staff and the rest of our board appreciates that comments as well. Seeing no other hands up, I have a motion to adjourn our AGM. And for our board members, we'll take about a 10 or 12-minute break and reconvene for our first meeting of 2022 at about 7:15. So motion to adjourn, please. Tanya? Thank you. We'll see our board in about 10 minutes. Just a reminder, you'll need to log off and log back in on the other link that was provided for our board meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks all.